And now it's high time that I give the floor to Professor Barry Smith from the United States. He's the professor of philosophy at the University of Buffalo, and his talk is titled Neural Chitchat.
So there is a second author to these slides, Jobst Landgräber, who is an AI engineer and philosopher and owner and director of an AI company. And he and I have just completed a book manuscript about the limits of AI, the thesis of which is basically that AI is not really very intelligent. And if it is intelligent, it's along very narrow lanes, such as playing chess or playing Go. Whenever we try and make it do anything such as have an intelligent conversation with a human being, it fails. And it's failed now for 15, 20 years. So we all hate making telephone calls to our bank's computers because we know we're going to have an unhappy conversation. They can't do conversation, and certainly they cannot take over the universe and make humans into their slaves. All right, now I'll get to Sherry Turkle in a minute. So let me just get rid of this. So AI doesn't work for human dialogues, and that's because human dialogues manifest an enormous variance. Every dialogue is different. And so you can't collect representative samples, which you would need to use to train a neural net. There are no representative samples because dialogues change all the time in all kinds of very complicated and unrepeatable ways. You can only use deep neural networks for data which repeat themselves, for instance, spam checkers or playing Go. And there is a lot of evidence for this. So the world's most popular chatbot or neural chit-chat system is called Ice, which means little Bing. And this is a chatbot which is the most popular chatbot in the world, and all kinds of boys fall in love with this girl. And this is what she looks like. I don't think you can hear her voice, but the voice is even more bland than the girl there. This is all you. This is what you get, whether she's reading the news or doing stock analysis or engaging in chit chat before you go to bed at night. And such chatbots are characterized by what we call double blandness. So they're bland because they repeat certain bland responses. They're also bland because they never take things forward in any way. They don't have goals. They don't have interests. They don't help you in any concrete way. They help you in a passive way by reassuring you that whatever you just said is very wise or very nice and so on. And this is because the method can only work in a context-free way. They can't take account of context. But real human dialogues, of course, are always inside rich, complicated, overlapping contexts, which can change from second to second. All right, now Sherry Turkle says, where people confront machines that seem to think, this suggests a new way for us to think about thought, memory, and so on, and thereby affects the way we think and see ourselves. I think this is wrong. I think that this is to give too much credit to the machine. So someone earlier today said that machines are just tools. Now, it's true that we do have a tendency, this is Judith now, to think of machines as thinking, but I think whenever we do that, we know that it's just a metaphor. We don't really believe it. Now, how do machines influence the way we think and so on? Well, Google search makes it possible for us to forget more things, which is, of course, a very positive consequence. It's not bad at all. But it doesn't change the way we think about human memory at all. And then this is my final sentence. So the only sort of machine that could affect the way we think and see ourselves as humans is a super duper machine intelligence with the power to take over the galaxy and create the singularity. but there will be no singularity. And you can read the book when it's published to see all the reasons why not. And that is the end.
Thank you very much. And now here's the time for questions. That would be great. Yeah. Yes, I can see the hand of Judith, please. Judith.
Since I've been addressed, I would like to react just very shortly. I actually agree with you. I don't think that computers can think or will be able to think. My worry is more that we react to anything that acts around us as if they could think. We want to and need to anticipate other agents' actions and explain them and predict them. And it seems that we are such that we cannot do it without using some kind of folk psychology. And if we could do without that, that would be interesting, but I don't know of any way of doing that. And it will be, I think, rather unsettling when say we have no idea on what basis our self-driving car does this or that, or how we come to get a particular book because the recommender system expanded its functions and settled it for us and so on. So I think it's more that we will have to be able to live together with agents that probably don't think or okay, don't think.
So I agree with you that we use folk psychology when engaging with certain kinds of machines, computers, probably robots. If there ever are any robots which can engage with humans in a somewhat human-like way. So far, it's significant that we do not have any such robots. Maybe it's difficult to build them. We would say that it's impossible to build them. So I agree, we use folk psychology, but we're using the terminology of folk psychology, I believe, in a metaphorical way. And we are aware that we're using it in a metaphorical way. And if we are not aware, then we are just not engaging properly with our environment. Now, with the self-driving car, I don't think that we will be more reassured in the willingness to use a self-driving car if we think that the self-driving car is thinking. On the contrary, the only thing which will reassure us is testing, huge amounts of testing in all circumstances, which demonstrate that the self-driving car behaves properly. And that's the way engineers view these matters. So they don't try and build a self-driving car that will seem to think. They're trying to build a self-driving car that will pass many, many very hard tests.
Anna Redding, please.
Yeah, just to say that actually today in Cambridge, they've just launched a number of self-driving cars, and the point is that they're using very predictable routes. So, yeah. And just using that really to segue into what I observe in this conversation is there's an assumption that conversation should necessarily be varied, and I don't think that that's the case. I think that one of the things I've observed from Sherry Turkle's memoir, and also observing in the conversation here, is there's an assumption about sort of neuro homogeneity, and I think if you take into account neurodiversity and the different ways in which conversation is used by different minds, then you can say that for some people, repetition and predictability, I think that there is a degree of repetition and predictability that, for example, AI offers, robots offer, computers offer, but also that humans offer too. And I think that those robots and computers mirror back our need actually for repetition and predictability, which in some people is greater than others. But I think we all require that to some degree. You know, certain forms of words people like to hear in the same way. Just the sort of sheer semantics of language, actually, the fact that we agree certain meanings to certain words means that nothing is infinitely varied. So just to sort of put that out there, and I think in a sense there's a bit of a mirroring going on here between Sherry Turkle's assumptions around sort of neuro homogeneity and our own assumptions that we can fall into. And I think there's much more variation in human beings in terms of our requirements for predictability.
Good. So they were interesting points, and we have a whole chapter of the book about the way in which self-driving cars are already working very well in controlled environments. We're making those controlled environments more and more encompassing to include different kinds of adverse events. But the interesting point is about repetition. I think that is true. It's not the kind of repetition which you could use to create training data for a neural net, but it's an interesting phenomenon. It reminds me of the way in which doctors are taught to make their patients feel comfortable. They go through various repetitive rituals. But the point is that the doctor can take the clues which he learns from that conversation and take urgent measures in different directions. The chatbot, which has learned to do these repetitive reassurance conversation games, can't do any of that. And we feel reassured by chatting with the doctor precisely because the doctor is generally intelligent and not just narrowly intelligent. And that's the same with our parents. It's the same with anyone around us. We want to be reassured that if they're engaging in with us in ritual repetitive conversation, if we have a big red blotch on our cheek, they'll tell us, and that's what we rely on. Robots can't do any of that. We'll never be able to do any of that, on our view.
I think
there's no training data for a big red blotch on your cheek.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Thank you for the question and the answer. And I think we have arrived at this substantial